Hi, I'm Nigel Atherton of What Digital Camera. We've just got news that Pentax has just announced a new flagship digital SLR, the K7D, and we've managed to get our hands on an early prototype model. The poor long-suffering Pentax owners have had to watch while other manufacturers like Canon, Nikon, Sony, Olympus have brought out model after model with innovative new features, whereas Pentax have been very, very quiet, probably the least prolific digital SLR manufacturer on the market, with very few new models in the last few years and an entry-level model which seems to have changed very little with progressive upgrades. So it's a big surprise now that Pentax have released this K7D, which has thrown everything. We've looked for a kitchen sink but can't see one on here, but it seems to have pretty much everything else that Pentax owners have been looking at other manufacturers doing and wondering, when is this coming to Pentax? Well, the answer is it's all on here. Now, like Pentax's mid-range digital SLR, the K20D, this camera is very well sealed against the elements. It features a stainless steel frame, a magnesium alloy body, and there are 77 seals against dust and moisture. This camera is dust-proof and it's resistant against moisture, and it's also able to work in very low temperatures of -10 degrees. Inside, the camera features a 14.6 megapixel CMOS sensor, which, although that sounds the same as the sensor in the K20D, Pentax insists it's a newly developed sensor. It's not clear at this point whether this is done with or without Samsung's cooperation, but hopefully more details of that will emerge shortly. There's also a new processor, Prime 2 processor, which is faster and supposedly improves image quality as well. The big surprise on this camera is the inclusion of HD video. Who'd have thought that Pentax would have beaten Sony to the punch by including high-def video on a digital SLR? Well, they have done. This camera offers three resolution modes for the video: 1080 by 720p, which is obviously offered also by the Nikon cameras, but at 30 frames a second, which is a higher frame rate. It also offers a 1536 by 1024 resolution, higher resolution video, also at 30 frames a second, and a lower resolution 640 by 416 resolution. There's also, for the people using video, there's also unusually a microphone input. This is the, apart from the Canon EOS 5D Mark II, this is the only digital SLR to offer a mic input for video to improve the audio quality, which is quite impressive. Also, for the first time on a Pentax digital SLR, we've got a 100% viewfinder and a 920-dot high-resolution LCD screen. So shooting and viewing pictures on this camera will be quite a pleasant experience. It also offers live view as well. So let's take a tour of the camera and see what it looks like. Okay, this is the top, on the top plate. We've got the, still retains the LCD data screen on the top. The ISO button is on the top and the exposure compensation is on the top, on the right hand side. The on-off button is a collar around the shutter button. On the left hand side of the prism is the mode dial. You can see I'm in movie mode at the moment. We've got program, you press the button to turn it, program, sensitivity, shutter priority, aperture priority, time and aperture priority, manual. The same modes as you would normally have, but of course with the addition of that video button. Looking on the back of the camera, you can see you've got front and rear input dials, and exposure lock on the top there. This is useful green button. If you're in manual exposure mode, you can press this green button and instantly get a meter reading. There you go, telling me, not surprising, there's not much light here. And then you can start at that point, 0.3 of a second, 4.5, to then input your own settings as you like. Here we have the focus mode selection. The camera has an 11-point wide frame AF sensor with 9 cross-type sensors in the middle. You can also select, here you go, you can also select single focusing point here as well. Below the focus mode selection is the live view button. The camera offers contrast detect AF as well as face detect AF in the live view modes. Then we have the four-way control pad, as is familiar to most DSLR users, and an info button and the menu button at the bottom of the screen. At the top we've got the playback and the delete button. On the side of the camera there is the flash sync button, which is very important to studio photographers. There's a RAW button here which enables you to, for example, shoot in JPEG mode, and then if you want to see the occasional shot you want to shoot in RAW, you can press press it just to get a raw shot. You can also do it all the way around, and you can also do it so that you can shoot in JPEG and then get raw plus JPEG, and there are various options for that. You've got the focusing modes down here, the mic socket as I mentioned before, and then the ports are here. There's an HDMI port, a DC input, and an AV terminal, and they're all behind this panel here. Turn to the other side, and we've got the card that takes SD, which is possibly surprising for a ProSpec camera, and there's the remote terminal here on this side. On the front, of course, there is a built-in flash as well. So that's the outside of the camera. There are also some new features on the inside too. These include a new dust reduction system, dust removal 2 they call it, which to minimise dust obviously on the sensor. There's not that many details yet as to how that works and how that differs from the previous incarnation. It can shoot continuous shooting at 5.2 frames a second for up to 40 JPEGs. There's a 77 segment multi-patterning metering, which is certainly upgraded from its predecessors as well. And there's a next generation shake reduction feature as well, which again features supposedly improvements on the shake reduction on the current cameras. So let's look at the menu. Unfortunately, the Pentax's menu system is still fairly basic compared to some of the competitors, like for example the Sony. I suppose compared to the Sony, this is like DOS compared with Windows, really, in terms of how sophisticated it is. But it's functional, it does the job. Within the menu, there are some interesting options here. You can see that there's the D-range setting. It's again not as sophisticated as some. You've got a choice of highlight control, where you can set it on or off. And in shadow correction, there are 3 levels of correction that you can apply there. There's lens correction, which offers distortion correction or lateral chromatic aberration adjustment. So looking at the second level of the menu, we've got extended bracketing. There's an HDR capture mode, which gives you a choice of standard or strong. There's a range of 16 digital filters for various special effects. Grayed out here, there's the multi-exposure mode, interval shooting, and a composition adjustment. And then here in the movie mode, you have the options. There you go, the various options for the movie mode. 40 pixels, quality level, sound, movie aperture control allowed, so you can set it whether you want it to be able to control the aperture when you're shooting movies or not. And you can also set whether you want shake reduction on when you're shooting movies or not. Live view, as you mentioned, and then all the other sort of things that you would expect to see in the menu as well. So overall, this is a very highly specified camera, probably Pentax's highest ever specified digital SLR camera, and it's about time really, because it gives entry-level Pentax users something to aspire to, something to look up to, and it gives people who haven't bought into a system yet a clear upgrade path. That if they buy into the Pentax system, there is a range of models going right up to the semi-professional that they can buy into, and they're not going to be limited by just two sort of relatively lower-end models. We don't have a price on the camera yet, and there's not going to be one announced for at least a week, but looking at the specification, really it's going to be competing with cameras like the Canon EOS 50D, the Nikon D300, so probably we would imagine the price to be competitive with those cameras, but of course I'm not entirely sure yet. It does of course have the HD video as well, which those cameras don't have. I must say I'm very excited by this camera. It's certainly the highest specified Pentax camera yet and has some really interesting features. We don't have any means of testing image quality or video quality yet because this is a pre-production model, but we'll do that as soon as we can. And we don't have price details yet either. But if you stay tuned and keep checking back on our website, we'll update you with all the information as soon as we can get it.